Welcome to Anime Recapped. Today I am going over a Japanese anime fantasy series called Fate Stay Night. There are 3 versions of this story and this recap will cover the Fate version released in 2006. It is age 15 and contains spoilers, so please watch responsibly. The story is set in Fuyuki City, where 2 servants are having a duel that destroyed the whole city and left it engulfed in flames. Luckily, there was a sole survivor, Shirou Emiya, who was rescued and later adopted by a man named Kiritsugu Emiya. 10 years later, Shirou devoted his life to following the ideals of his adoptive father who died 5 years ago, to become the hero of justice. He does a lot of helping out around, in school, at home, and at work with the aid of the magical power taught to him by his father. Miss Fujimura took it upon herself as her responsibility to take care of him at home, and Sakura, who secretly has a crush on him, also provides some assistance. On his way home one night, he comes across a silver-haired girl who warns him to summon a servant before vanishing mysteriously. Meanwhile, there's another girl at Shirou's school, Rin Tasaka, who summons an archer-class servant in preparation for the Fifth Holy Grail War and begins her search for magi with other servants. Rin expresses her disappointment at not being able to summon a Saber-class servant as she originally intended. At school, Shirou learns that Shinji, Sakura's older brother, has been acting irrationally and mean to others in the archery club, supposedly due to having his ego damaged after being rejected romantically by Rin. When Shirou tries asking him about it, Shinji dodges the topic and requests Shirou to clean the school's dojo, which he accepts. Shirou was still in school till night cleaning the dojo when Rin and Archer were confronted by a Lancer-class servant, who engages Archer in battle on school grounds. Shirou heard a commotion and came out to see the battle. Unfortunately, he was noticed by Lancer, who chased after him while trying to escape. Lancer caught up with him and drove his spear into his heart, thereby killing Shirou. Rin and Archer went after them. Rin finds Shirou's corpse and revives him with a magical jewel out of pity, despite the Holy Grail War's rule that innocent witnesses must be killed. Lancer notices Shirou is still alive and goes to kill him again at his home. Shirou accidentally summons Saber, the most powerful servant who saved him from Lancer. Lancer tries to escape at first and Saber pursues, having a brief duel leading to Saber getting injured. Lancer's master orders him to return and so he leaves. Saber refers to Shirou after the duel as her master, which puzzled him. Saber then attacks an approaching Rin and Archer, but is stopped by Shirou. Later, Rin discovers Shirou does not know even the most basic of spells, or the fact that he is a participant in the game. She takes him to a magus, KOTOMINE, the overseer of the Fifth Holy Grail War. Shirou learns more about the Holy Grail War from him and decides to participate after learning the fire he survived 10 years ago was a result of the previous war. Afterwards, Shirou, Saber, and Rin are confronted by the same silver-haired girl Shirou encountered earlier, who is accompanied by a massive servant. She introduced herself as Eliasviel von Einsburn. Eliasviel's servant of the Berserker class attacks Saber, who is still wounded from her battle with Lancer. Shirou and Rin watched helplessly, unable to stop Berserker from severely wounding Saber. Not happy seeing Saber suffer grievously, Shirou blocks a fatal blow intended for her. Surprised by this courageous act, Eliasviel leaves with Berserker. As Shirou dies, he had a flashback to the night where Kiritsugu died, in which Kiritsugu confessed his wish to become a hero of justice, and Shirou decided to take his place in accomplishing that wish. The next day, Shirou woke up at his home to find that his body has mysteriously healed itself, just like Saber's auto-regeneration ability. Later, he starts understanding more about the type of person Saber is and begins contemplating about his feelings towards Saber. Shirou decided to introduce Saber to Sakura and Fujimura during dinner, saying she's a distant relative of Kiritsugu. Feeling threatened by Saber's presence, Fujimura challenges Saber to a kendo duel, but lost the duel and decides to allow her to stay. Meanwhile, Archer asked Rin if she meets Shirou again, when they were investigating the gas leak incidents throughout the city, what she would do, and she replied she will kill him. After having breakfast, Shirou sets out to school and Saber urges him to use a command seal to summon her if he ever was in danger. After school, Rin unexpectedly attacks Shirou, with the chase being witnessed by an unknown female servant. Eventually, Rin cornered him and offers to spare his life if he give her his command seals. However, he refuses, prompting Rin to try and kill him. But both are distracted by a scream downstairs. They then go downstairs to find an unconscious girl. Rin tries to heal her, and in her attempt, a dagger flies toward her, but Shirou blocks it with his arm and runs outside to find a servant of the rider class. On sensing his own danger, he considers summoning Saber, but decides it's too risky to involve her and confront Rider himself, almost nearly getting himself killed until Rin rescues him. At Rin's home, Shirou and Rin decide to form a temporary truce to find Ryder's master. Rin tells Archer to escort Shirou home. Archer warns Shirou that Saber will dislike not being able to fight because of Shirou's ideals and concern for her. On getting home, Saber confronts Shirou over not summoning her against Ryder. Later on, she insists on accompanying him and Sakura to school. Rin also stops by, lying that she and Shirou have agreed to walk to school together, which leads Sakura to believe the two are dating, and runs off in tears. Saber later allowed Shirou to walk with her alone. Shirou makes up with Sakura at school and also learns from Rin that a classmate was found alive having been attacked by a servant they presumed to be Ryder. Rin discovered Shirou can detect sigils related to a magical barrier placed over the entire school, and they both set out to destroy most of them. At the end of the day, after Rin leaves, Shirou feels the presence of an extremely large sigil and discovers it in the school's dojo. He is then confronted by Ryder and her master, who is revealed to be Shinji. Shinji defends his decision to set up the barrier and offers Shirou to form an alliance that he also has little knowledge in using magic. Later on, Shirou informs Saber and Rin about another master, a witch at the local shrine, Ryuido Temple, which he learns from Shinji. Saber insists they attack the master directly and immediately, but Shirou and Rin believe it is more tactical to prioritize Ilyasviel and Berserker over Ryder and the master at Ryuido Temple. Rin later decides to move in with Shirou to make communications easier, which shocks Sakura and Fujimura when they learn about it. Meanwhile, Saber is displeased regarding the strategy against the master at Ryuido Temple and eventually decides to disobey Shirou's wishes and heads off for Ryuido Temple alone. On arriving at the temple, Saber battles an assassin-class servant who claims to be Sasaki Kajiro, who is guarding the temple gateway. Simultaneously, Ryder breaches the temple's perimeter but is attacked by skeletal beings called golems and confronts their creator, a caster-class servant. Sensing the danger Saber is in, Shirou rushes to the temple on his own. After dodging Assassin's specialized attack, Saber uses whatever mana she has and prepares to use her noble phantasm, but was interrupted by an arriving Shirou, which makes Assassin leave. Saber then collapses from a lack of mana, and so Shirou then carries her back home, where she later regains consciousness. Saber criticizes Shirou for repeatedly forcing her to not fight. Rin responds that it is because he simply does not want to see her hurt. As a result, Saber agrees to teach him how to fight with a sword. Shirou has his first training session with Saber but was poor against her in battle. That same day, Shirou went to the park and runs into Ilya in town, and they have a conversation. When he returns home, Rin gives Shirou a jewel to swallow, which activates his power to use magic. Shinji tricked Shirou to come to school, trapping him after Ryder activated the Blood Fort Andromeda. He manages to hold his own against Shinji. However, Shinji orders Ryder to kill him, but Ryder's blade is unable to deal Shirou a killing blow, so she kicks him out of the window. When Shirou realized he could die, he summons Saber in the nick of time. Saber fights Ryder, and Shirou defeats Shinji. Ryder uses her noble phantasm to escape from the school. After tracking them down, Shirou and Saber continue their fight with Shinji and Ryder. Saber decides to defend and wait for an opportunity for Ryder to be defenseless, and eventually unleashes her noble phantasm Excalibur to defeat Ryder. Afterward, Saber collapses and Shirou carries her home. While Saber is still weak, Ilya captures Shirou and gives him the proposition to become her servant, which he refuses. Saber, Rin and Archer go looking for Shirou when Saber wakes up. When they found them, Ilya orders Berserker on them. Archer battles Berserker while Rin, Shirou, and Saber escape. Even though Archer knows that he will lose in the end, he still decides to deal as much damage as possible first and uses his noble phantasm, Unlimited Blade Works, a reality marble. He manages to take 5 of Berserker's lives in total before he is ultimately defeated. Rin's last command spell disappears and Saber collapses in the forest. Shirou decides to give a part of his magical circuit to Saber to replenish her mana. Afterward, Ilya and Berserker came after them for the final round. Shirou discovered that another sword of Saber's, Caliburn, is powerful enough to defeat Berserker. He then manages to recreate it, and then he and Saber then work together to defeat him. After the fight, Shirou takes Ilya home with him. With the recent rise of mass comas in the city, Shirou and the others decide to go after the master and servants at the Rudoji Shrine. They later confirm that one of Shirou's teachers, Soichiro Kyuzuki, is the master of Caster, and that Caster is the master of Assassin. They both are holding Sakura captive as a sacrifice to summon the Holy Grail. Shirou, Rin, and Saber collectively attempt to salvage the situation, rescue Sakura, and stop the Holy Grail from being summoned. While Saber battles with Assassin, Shirou fends off Kyuzuki and Rin attempts to save Sakura. With Caster and Kyuzuki so close to victory, another servant appears in armor and defeats Caster and Kyuzuki. Shirou and the others escape, while Saber reveals to them who the new servant is and how she knows him. which links to the clash shown at the very start of the series. It is also revealed that Saber is currently incomplete without her sheath and that Kiritsugu Emiya was Saber's previous master and he ordered Saber to destroy the Holy Grail in the previous war. Unable to hide his feelings for Saber any longer, Shirou asks her to go out on a date with him around town. Afterwards, they get in a fight and Shirou ends up running off back to his house. Shirou returns and makes amends with Saber and they both walk back home together. On their way, Shirou and Saber are attacked by the servant Gilgamesh, who had previously saved them from Kuzuki and Castor. Shirou then traces a sheath for Excalibur, with which they manage to repel him. Later that night, Shirou makes his feelings clear to Saber and tells her that he wants her to stay with him after the war is over. Shirou goes to KIREI's church. He gets captured and was almost killed by Lancer, but Saber appears in time to save him and heal his wounds. KIREI reveals that he was the cause of the fire 10 years ago and the current 7th master. He then orders Lancer and Gilgamesh to kill them, but Lancer surprisingly confronts Gilgamesh to allow them to escape. However, Lancer was overwhelmed and killed. Ilya is later captured by KIREI. Shirou and Saber then head to the Rudoji shrine in order to defeat him. Saber battles with Gilgamesh while Shirou goes after KIREI to release Ilya. Shirou and Saber combine their power together and are able to defeat Gilgamesh and KIREI together. Shirou commands Saber to destroy the Holy Grail as his final command. Saber finally admitted her love for Shirou as she disappears. An epilogue then takes place, with everyone returning to their normal lives, as though they just woke up from a long dream, and with Shirou satisfied with the life he has led, forever remembering Saber and enjoying a good life with everyone around him. Meanwhile, Saber has returned to her own timeline, where she tells Bediver that she had a wonderful dream, and asks if one can relive dreams. Bediver replies with the affirmative. She then asks Bediver to return Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake, and moments after that, Saber peacefully dies under a tree. And that's this anime recapped. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.